We are live, everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Real Estate, hosted by yours truly. My name is Ray, and I am a bearded man of real estate. And this is episode 373. Yeah! Where's my air horn? Yeah! 373 is a lucky number. But it's going to be unlucky for Zillow, perhaps. They're getting sued again. But it's one of the same lawsuits that was dismissed earlier this year. So it has been rebrought. It's been modified, edited. And we're going to see if they have a chance now. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Real REMAX group merger. There was a vote by shareholders, and we have that final tally. And it might surprise you. We also have on tap today a Texas broker pushing back on listing data. So I'm interested in that one. What was the other question? Oh yeah, this pied-à-terre tax in New York. Is it really just an opportunity to dox rich people? We're going to talk about that. We've got a lot of economic news. And this is a wonderful time to buy, but nobody's buying. We actually had a huge decrease in buyers. So what the flip is going on with the economy? That's all we have to cover. We only have an hour to do it today. Actually, technically 40 minutes. So I have 50 minutes. I'm sorry, 50 minutes. I have a hard out at 1. So what's up? Shout out on to the Instagrammers. If you guys could, if you're ever watching on Instagram, or if you see this on Instagram, I would love to know, because I don't think Instagram is really a place where you'd want to put a bunch of live streaming. And I'm curious if it's actually worth it to put it there. Because if I don't put it on Instagram, I could put it on another stream. The one thing I like about Instagram is it just keeps my bubble up there the whole time. And then when people go there, they actually click the Instagram, and then they can click the link that says watch on YouTube. That's really the only reason I like it on Instagram, but most of our stuff comes from YouTube. And if you're over on YouTube, you can comment and I can talk about you. There's Matt LaMarche. He says, hey, happy Wednesday. I'll take my medicine, Scap. I'm a real man and can dish it just as well as I could take it. And from what I hear, Scap, he really took it.
Oh, he took it. That's for sure.
Oh, man.
I mean, just for everybody listening out there, you're up by 1 stroke on him after 9 holes, and it somehow managed to win by 14 strokes. That just tells you how Matt's day went. So,
Matt says, sounds dirty. We're not on LinkedIn anymore. Matt said, like LinkedIn. Yeah, we dropped the LinkedIn stream because no one was on LinkedIn. We dropped the Twitch and Kick streams because no one was on those. So now we're just on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And you can comment on Facebook and YouTube, and I can display your comment and talk about it. If you want to have your voice on the podcast, just like you heard Scap over there, you can actually join on Clubhouse. And you can find the Real Estate Networking Club. Or you could just put in this. I have a nice little bit.ly link, a short link. So you could go to bit.ly/REN Clubhouse. REN is short for Real Estate Networking. So bit.ly/REN Clubhouse. You could go there and actually add your voice to the show. I think we're one of the only podcasts that lets you add your voice to the show live. I don't know of any other live broadcast that dares do something like that. And I think we are the only real estate podcast that does that. So there you go.
All this golf talk, we might have to alter that. We're bordering on exactly bordering on what might happen.
You know what would make this actual golf podcast is if I actually could play golf. But
you and me both.
So bad. I'm so bad. It's not even. Anytime somebody I'll get on a charity team or something like that, and I just straight up tell them, I'm here for good vibes and miracle shots, because that's really the only thing I'm bringing. Matt says anyone can play. Yeah, but not play well. Armando says, are you on Rumble though? I was on Rumble. We did stream some on Rumble, but kind of the same thing happened. There was very little audience there. So if you're not a big show on Rumble, or if you're not just dedicated to the Rumble audience, it's difficult to build a following there. So the number one place to watch is probably YouTube. We have more audio. Some of you are on the podcast going, but it's us. Yes, I have more podcast listeners than anything, than live streams or video watches later. There are more people that download and listen to the show than anything else. So pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Is Spotify live, or is Spotify just a replay?
Spotify and iTunes are just the podcast. It does come out very fast though. So about 2 hours after the show, it'll be out. Okay, let's talk about Real REMAX. Did y'all hear this? Real REMAX is interesting because Real announced months ago that they were going to buy REMAX, and it shocked the world. Then we found out that there was another bidder for REMAX who was offering to bid more, and REMAX didn't want to take them. There's some speculation, fairly strong speculation / insinuation, from the offer that other company made, that other company was EXP, which is interesting. Oh, good. Matt, you worried me for a second. Matt says audio is better on YouTube, and if the audio only app. And if then the audio only app. Oh, I don't. Oh. Yeah. So Clubhouse is supposed to be an audio only app, but the audio is not as good. Yeah, I get you. Okay, so Real REMAX had a vote, and this was kind of their final big step, is to make sure all the shareholders were on board. And full disclosure, I got an opportunity to vote because I have a bunch of shares of Real. So I think Real agents that own Real shareholders, it just wasn't Real agents, but it was Real shareholders got to vote. And the final tally, let me see if I can find it here, was 99% of Real shareholders said, yeah, this is a good deal. 99% of Real shareholders were like, yep, we're going to do this. 78.8% of REMAX holdings, security holders, thought this was a good deal. That means that there's 21.2% of people who hold REMAX shares thought this wasn't a good idea, which is kind of stunning. Like, I know we would, let's just focus on the wins, right? You could say, let's just focus on the wins. We got a good win there. But it is kind of stunning, because what that is telling us is that REMAX has dropped the ball for years. They've been bleeding agents for years. They are in debt, crazy amount of debt, and they're not a growing company. And 22% of the shareholders were thinking, yeah, let's keep doing that. That's crazy work. I don't understand the logic behind that at all, but I guess to each their own. So Armando said he told EXP to rescind their offer because ROI was declining. Yeah. The ROI on REMAX was definitely headed downward. That's why, I mean, there's a lot of Real agents that are saying like, hey, I'm for it, but at the same time, what's in it for us? Because REMAX is getting our tech, they're getting our back end, they're getting our Real Academy and support, and what are we getting in return? But I think one of the number one things that is most valuable for agents that we get in return is power. We're going from a 35,000 agent company to a 180,000 agent company. So when you negotiate a deal with homes.com or Zillow, or if you want to try to keep your data, good luck doing that at a 35,000 person company. But 180,000 and being the number 2 largest brokerage, is it largest brokerage in the world? I believe it is. That's a significant difference in negotiating power. So I think that is understated by most who are looking at all of this.
Should help you with AREA, right?
Yeah, should help you with AREA, should help you with NAR as well. You know,
This is going to be an interesting battle coming up. I can just tell.
what do you mean a battle between number 1 and number 2, or between companies like Real and Compass and the data brokers that take advantage of them?
Well, between NAR and AREA.
Oh, yes.
And all of that stuff that you just talked about will be part of it.
We actually have, let's see, hang on just a second. I have them in the news here. ARA co-founder calls NYC pied-à-terre tax rollout a dox. So this was an interesting take on this, and I think he's actually making a lot of friends in the industry because of this take. Let me share this tab instead. The ARA, I guess it's not called area anymore. Could they not do area? I really liked area. But Jason Haber, who is a friend of the show, has been on the show in the past. He's the co-founder of the American Real Estate Association, ARA. He told New York City Council members Tuesday that the city's rollout of its new pied-à-terre tax amounted to a dox of nearly 1 million property owners. What? Check this out. Haber, who serves as the president of the New York Real Estate Continuum, NYRAC, and has worked as a licensed broker in the city for 20 years, made comments during the city council oversight hearing on taxes implementation. ARA and NYRAC held press conference and a rally on the steps of City Hall ahead of the hearing. Haber co-founded ARA and, okay, went through that part. Let's keep going here. Speaking at a rally ahead of the hearing, Haber said the city was treating the property owners as guilty until proven innocent and called on officials to apologize to the 959,710 workers whose information was published. What? How the tax works. The pied-à-terre tax, enacted as part of the state's fiscal year 2026 and 27 budget, took effect July 1st and applies to 1 to 3 family homes valued at $5 million or more, along with condominium and cooperative units valued at $1 million or more that don't serve as a primary residence. Okay, so the roundup of the numbers, we've already talked about that part. So Haber's testimony. In his prepared testimony, Haber argued that the city eliminated what he called practical obscurity, a legal principle holding that information to impractical to compile by hand is functionally private. So a legal principle holding that information too impractical to compile by hand is functionally private by making records searchable and downloadable. In other words, if you had to compile all these records of these homeowners by going to the county and then looking through by hand and finding them, it's practical obscurity. But as soon as you put them in a database that is searchable and downloadable, it's a problem. He said pulling all 959,710 records manually would take one person working 8-hour days, 5 days a week, roughly 15 years. Haber asked whether the release was the result of an accident, incompetence, or hubris. Haber told council members that he downloaded the list himself the weekend it became available, built an application to sort it, including integrating age data to create a targeted list. He said he ultimately chose not to release the tool, saying he was concerned it would be used for bad intent. What? So if I could do it in 2 hours and I'm not even a computer programmer, imagine what someone could do who wanted to harm New Yorkers, he said, calling the rollout botched. Wow. Haber also raised concerns about fraud, telling council members that most of the published data could let scammers pose as city officials and demand payment from property owners, particularly targeting seniors, to avoid the surcharge. Asked by council member Dinowitz what steps the city could take, Haber said he would take a list offline immediately, reverse the burden of proof, requiring the city to demonstrate that a property is subject to the tax rather than requiring the homeowners to prove otherwise. That's the smarter take. In the city's defense, they said that the state law required the city to publish supplemental roll and that the roll itself does not determine what parties are subject to the tax. He said the initial determination letters went out only to owners whose primary residency could not be confirmed through existing records, and that nearly 42,000 property owners had since applied for exemptions. So of the 959,000, only 42 applied for an exemption. 42,000. Lee said the department has expanded outreach efforts, including sessions at senior centers. But this is exactly what Haber is saying. Yeah, okay, you increase your outreach, but that's what a scammer is going to do too. And you just gave scammers the call list. So now even if you do get a hold of one of them and you're legitimately the city, now you have a different problem because they are not going to believe you. And they're not going to believe you because of all the other scammers. This is a cluster. Officials absent citing litigation. Department of Finance officials did not appear in person citing the pending litigation and instead submitted written testimony that Councilmember Brewer read into the record. Okay, I think that's about it. But interesting take from him. I thought it was a really good take, actually. It's one that I had not heard, and one I didn't even know that was going on. I didn't know that was happening. So there you go. The pied-à-terre tax doxes everyone who has homes over $5 million. I would be livid if I was a person in that category. Oops, sorry. Okay. Went a little bit out of order. Let me come back to data. I guess it's kind of this similar topic. But we were talking about negotiating with our data as Real Could now is 180,000 person brokerage. And there's a Texas broker that's really pushing back on listing data terms. An Arlington, Texas-based real estate agent and CEO has spent the past several months pressing MLS leaders for greater transparency on how real estate data gets licensed, who profits from it, and who decides what happens next. Earlier this year, Smokey Garrett. That's his name. That's an amazing Texas name. Smokey Garrett. Smokey Garrett, GO Network founder and CEO, briefed agent leadership councils across the brokerage's 13 market centers on a national online portal participation agreement. Garrett walked section by section through where listing photos and data travel, how buyer leads get routed, and whether contributed content can ever be reclaimed once it's out. The briefing zeroed in on data rights buried in the fine print, including resyndication, sublicensing, and whether data could be trained for artificial intelligence models. Underneath all of it, Garrett says, one liability question stood out. Brokers, under the agreement's terms, are on the hook for the data license forever. Did you know that? If you're a broker, you are on the hook for the data license forever. Garrett believes the future of real estate data can't be decided without meaningful input from brokerages carrying the liability for the listings and the agents whose fiduciary relationship and expertise create underlying value. The questions have driven his discussions with leaders of the Metro Texas Association of Realtors, North Texas Real Estate Information Systems. The talks put data control, transparency, and the MLS's future role at the center of the broader industry reckoning. I mean, good on him that we found the one person that reads the EULA. Smokey Garrett. He read the EULA. And because he read the EULA, he don't like it. Some questions Emin asked is, what specifically concerns you enough about this issue to brief the market centers? He said, When this first came across my desk, it started as a conversation about participation in an online portal agreement. But the more we dug into it, the more we realized this wasn't just about one agreement. It was about the future of our agents' businesses. He said, as we reviewed the language, it became clear that there were much bigger questions to ask around perpetual licensing, sublicensing, lead routing, ownership, and the ongoing responsibilities agents could be accepting. Those aren't small details. They're business decisions that deserve careful consideration, he said. I feel like this is a ChatGPT statement, by the way. Those aren't small details. They're business decisions that deserve careful consideration. That's definitely a ChatGPT. Can you give a concrete example of data being re-syndicated, sublicensed, or used for AI training? He said, I think a lot of brokers simply believe that authorizing a listing to be displayed online, but when you really read the language, it appears to allow for much broader use of that content long after the original purpose has been fulfilled. Once licensing data, photos, or other content can be sublicensed or incorporated into other products, it becomes much harder for brokers and agents to know where it's going, how it's being used, or whether they have any meaningful control over it. He said on Zillow's General Terms of Use, Section 7 grants perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide license that includes the ability to use, modify, or create derivative works from, distribute, sublicense, and upload the content. He said that type of language, every broker should understand before deciding what they're agreeing to. One of the things that stood out to me is the ongoing responsibility of these agreements can be placed on brokers. The indemnification language isn't limited to today. It can extend to third-party claims related to the content that's been uploaded. So basically, Zillow is saying, if somebody sues us about this stuff, we're indemnified and we're coming after you. What really caught my attention is that some of these provisions survive even after the agreement ends. The license being granted is described as perpetual and irrevocable, while the obligations can continue long after the broker no longer has practical control over where the content goes or how it's being used. That's wild. So he's with Go Network, Smokey Garrett, reading the EULA. Good on him. I just don't know if this is going to make any meaningful change, though. I really hope it does. Texas, I feel like Texas, of all states, would be the state to kind of get this right and say, no. We have freedom here. and we're going to make sure our citizens are taken care of like they should be. I feel like Texas is the state to kind of set this right. But we'll see. All right, I'm going to keep rolling. You guys feel free to jump in if you want to, but I'm just going to keep rolling because I have limited time here. There's a new player. There's a new plaintiff to revive the mortgage steering lawsuit against targeting Zillow. So if you guys recall, Zillow came out with their home loan. And when they did, they kind of baked it into their other services as offerings that they wanted the agents that work with them via Flex and other things to offer people. And there were claims that these agents would get scored based on how often or how much they recommend Zillow home loans. And if they recommended other home loans or lenders, that Zillow would actually ding them and would stop sending them as many leads. So Zillow is getting sued. Originally, it was by the agents saying like, hey, you're changing my score and my ability to get leads because of your Zillow home loans. I don't believe in your Zillow home loans. The Zillow home loans wasn't good for my client. So I'm going to sue you so I can offer whatever I want to whoever I want. Well, the judge tossed it and basically said, no, you don't have a case, but he didn't dismiss it with prejudice. He just dismissed it. So 3 weeks after the judge dismissed that lawsuit targeting Zillow and its mortgage lending program, plaintiffs' attorneys have revived the suit and filled out an amended complaint alleging that Zillow requires agents to steer their home buyer clients to Zillow Home Loans. So this one is now from the consumer instead, I guess. So plaintiffs represented by Seattle-based firm Hagens Berman. Oh, let me display that. There you go. A third amended complaint late Monday that removes all brokerage defendants and focuses solely on 5 Zillow entities. So for whatever reason, maybe it's because the agents weren't the injured party. I think we brought that up one of the times that this lawsuit was brought up, saying, well, the agents weren't really harmed here. And it's not until the agent gets sued by the consumer that they could bring in Zillow as a third party. So the agent could say, well, I was forced to do this in order to maintain my business and keep this. So Zillow made me do it, basically. And they could bring Zillow in as a third party. But if the agent has not been injured, they can't really file a suit. So now they have clients who are filing the suit. The lawsuit generally alleged that agents who are part of Zillow's preferred program, rebranded from Zillow Flex, steered their clients to obtain mortgage through Zillow Home Loans, the fastest growing source of revenue for the portal giant. If the agents don't comply or they fail to meet Zillow's steering quotas, the agents are dropped from the Zillow preferred program, regardless of the agent's performance or client satisfaction. But if they do comply, they're awarded with more leads. The plaintiffs allege that Zillow offered fewer loan packages than competing lenders, interest rates were higher, and they didn't offer assistance for first-time home buyers. I think that's just kind of weak. I mean, they don't have as many products, they're not as good. That's fine. Like, I understand what they're trying to say is like, hey, my fiduciary is to my client. You don't offer the stuff my client needs. So how can I possibly maintain my fiduciary by recommending what you're telling me to recommend? I get what they're saying. It just feels like a weaker argument than a, what's it called? It's not the truth in lending. Why can I not think of this? RESPA. So Zillow's mortgage division grew. Zillow consistently denied allegations, and a statement pointed out that it has continually been successful in fighting the lawsuit off its iterations. Now, this statement from Zillow was effective because it definitely made me second guess the validity of the claim, or if the claim even has a chance in court. The statement says, this new complaint has just as little merit as the plaintiff's 5 other attempts, which have all been unsuccessful. A Zillow spokesperson said in a statement, a federal court dismissed every one of their claims last month, and our position hasn't changed since then. The tools Zillow offers, or the tools Zillow provides for buyers, are free, transparent, and optional. Any claims to the contrary are baseless. We will continue to defend this case with the same confidence we've had throughout, regardless of how many times the plaintiffs refile. So that's interesting. They're basically saying that everything they've done is transparent and optional and free. And this is where they get you, because it is technically optional for the buyer, for the home buyer, but it wasn't optional for the agent to offer it to that home buyer. So the quote unquote injured party is the buyer who could have gotten a better deal elsewhere. But Zillow's saying, well, you didn't have to go with us. And that's such a shady way out. They're saying, well, it wasn't forced for you. It wasn't. It was forced for the agent. I don't like this. They go on and say nothing about the plaintiff's latest amended complaint changes the facts, the law, or how Zillow operates. We remain confident in our position as we vigorously defend ourselves in court. So what this actually means is that in order to get this changed, you're going to have legislation passed first. In order for the forced offering of a lender by a referral company, you're going to have to get legislation passed that deals with it. And good luck, because Zillow is a $1 billion company. Huge lobby. All right, does anyone think this has a shot? Oh, Jack, I just saw you got on the phone. I just, because of how they've sorted it, I don't think it has a shot. I wish it had a shot. I do. I want it to have a shot. The proposed class action lawsuit alleges that Zillow violated the Real Estate Settlement Protections Act, RESPA, and the Washington Consumer Protections Act. It asked for unspecified damages to be determined at trial. I mean, I think there's enough to go to trial. I just don't think it's going to survive trial because the attorneys for Zillow aren't dumb. And you can tell by how they've structured this that, you know, the first thing is like, hey, these guys weren't injured. So if they're not injured, why do we have this lawsuit? And then boom, it gets thrown. And in this case, it's like, hey, well, everything we did was optional. The buyer didn't have to use that. Sorry, I had to cough. All right, let's keep trucking. Let's keep trucking. There's a new law out there. The 21st Century Road to Housing Act is now law. And the National Association of Realtors published this article that said, here's the things that you need to know about it. Number one is building more homes. At its core, the act is focused on increasing housing supply. The law addresses barriers that can make housing harder and more expensive to build, including developing model housing supply frameworks, rewarding communities that adopt pro-housing policy, supporting pre-approved housing designs that can speed permitting, streamlining environmental reviews. Number two, so number one was building more homes. Number two is expanded access to home ownership. They say measures to improve the Federal Housing Administration's small dollar mortgage lending, which we've talked about. Number three is making federal housing programs work better. Major change to the HOME investment partnership program, the Home Investment Partnership Program, to provide greater flexibility to support home ownership, while the community development block grants can now support affordable housing construction. It requires statutory framework for disaster recovery. Number four, encouraging house innovation. So this was the manufactured housing thing. The 21st Century Road to Housing Act advances manufactured housing reforms designed to lower production costs and expand design and siting options. It also supports commercial to residential conversions. That's interesting. Creates opportunities to test point access or single stair multifamily buildings. What's up, Mike? Come on up, buddy. Funding new programs is number five. Congress will need to provide funding through the appropriations process for these programs to get off the ground. Many are time limited. NAR will continue advocating it to fund these programs. So NAR is a fan of this. NAR had a big part of the bill and in writing the bill. Implementation also expands past Washington to state and local governments. So we'll keep an eye on this one. It's for the most part, I like it. The one thing I don't like, I'm a little concerned with manufactured housing. We've talked about this before. If you take the wheels off, I really feel like the manufactured housing is going to potentially start costing more money. Oh shoot. I just had 4 or 5 comments come in. Sorry, guys. Matt says, what kind of show is this? I have that somewhere. I still have it on the board. There it is.
What kind of show is this?
There you go, Armando. Matt said from Inman Tech Roundup, Martha Stewart gets into the prop tech game. Martha Stewart is launching a home intelligence app. This was not on my radar for the day. And then Vista Lakes TV said it's 100% true. Flex agents get higher priority and more leads when pushing Zillow home loans. It's preposterous to think otherwise. How's that fair to the consumer when consumers have no idea? I get what you're saying, but that's their carve out. Is it's not optional for the real estate agent, but it's definitely optional for the buyer. It's annoying. Okay. So housing hopefully will be more affordable now that the new law has passed. We'll see. I'm keeping an eye on manufacturer home pricing. We'll see if it remains affordable, because now that you don't have to have wheels on it, there may be some manufactured housing folks that start raising the price. So we'll see. Homebuilder sentiment's low, even with this big bill passed. Homebuilder sentiment is still in the dumps, according to the National Association of Home Builders. The HMI, which measures confidence in new build markets on a scale of 0 to 100, ticked up 1 point to 35, with builders particularly worried about homebuyer demand in the coming months. Yeah, anytime you start to see supply go way up, home builders are going to get a little shaky. Confidence in the current sales condition increased 2 points to 39, while expectations over the next 6 months and traffic from prospective buyers remain unchanged at 43 and 23. So home builders still feeling the pinch. Other economic news, the number of U.S. home buyers just dropped to a record low, shifting the market further in buyers' favor. So if you're looking to buy a home and you haven't left the market, this could be a really wonderful time for you to buy a home. Sellers outnumbered buyers by 51% in July, just shy of December's record high. The number of buyers in the market fell to a record low of 967,000 amid historically high housing costs. Nearly 80% of all U.S. metros are now buyers markets. Wow. Led by Miami, 154%. Oh, I know somebody from Miami. I'm missing this to her right now. This is crazy. What an interesting opportunity. There you go. Nearly 80% of U.S. metros are now buyers markets, led by Miami, 154% more sellers than buyers. Nashville and a trio of Texas cities. House hunters in those particular places have a lot of negotiating power. There are just 6 sellers markets in the U.S. New York City suburbs, where demand is relatively strong. Most of the buyers markets got even more buyer friendly. So yeah, here's the chart. It's a good looking chart. There are 51% more sellers than buyers. It's just continuing to go up from 2023. This difference in buyers and sellers just continues to climb. So it was at the high, as the article said, at 52% in 2026, is currently 51% now. Wow. And back in 2019, 17, which I feel like we're in that 2017 to 19 range as far as what the market feels like. But at that time, there were only 3% more sellers than buyers. The highest it got in that time period was 11% from 2027 or from 2017 to 2020. Now, the last time, the chart doesn't go back past 2013, but in 2014, that was a high of 28% more buyers than sellers. And I remember that time we were like, whoa, this buyer's market's so great. It's even better now. But home buying demand dropped to the lowest on record. What a wonderful time to buy. More people should buy. Home buying demand drops. I mean, somebody out there may hear me and it could change their life. So you never know. Don't take my investing advice. But dadgum, it is a good market to buy a house in. U.S. home prices rose at 0.27%. And this is why. This is why it's a good market. Even in a bad market for sellers, home prices are still going up. And we've talked about this. Even in a terrible market for a seller, home prices are going up. How does that happen? It was an anomaly, guys. 2007, 8, 9 was an anomaly. It's not going to happen again in our lifetime. Prices rose 3.4% from a year earlier, which is the fastest growth in a year. This is according to Redfin Home Price Index. Flat home price growth is a reflection of the housing market dynamics. Buyers are still contending with housing costs, including mortgage rates that have set into the mid and high sixes. Yeah. So naturally, pending home sales are also going to dip, and it did. I feel like we talked about this last week, but maybe the news wasn't out yet. Pending home sales fell 2.3% in July. This is at the end of the week last week, August 18th. Oh no, that's yesterday. My bad. I thought this article was one from last week, but it's not. Pending home sales fell 2.3% in July, dropping to the lowest level since January, as the year's highest mortgage rates weighed on contract signings, according to the National Association of Realtors. The monthly decline followed a 2.2% drop from a year earlier. I was just thinking, I wonder who the economist for ARA is going to be. Area? Because Lawrence Union, they have an economist that puts together all these numbers and stuff. It would be interesting if Area got an economist and they could have the battle of the economist. Who's going to be right? Who's going to be close? So the U.S. pending home sales and new listings show flickers of life at the start of August. So U.S. pending sales edged up 0.4% week over week in the 4 weeks ending August 9th. Mortgage purchase applications rose 3% week over week. Many would-be affordable buyers are on the sidelines, but the weekly average mortgage rate is 6.69%. Well, if you're looking at the 6.6% thinking, man, I wish I just had the cash. Well, cash sales also fade. The cash share was 31.4% of sales, down from 32.3%. We haven't seen nearly as many cash sales as we were last couple of years. So here's a chart showing you that all cash sales ease. At its peak it looks like 2013. And it was around, I've already read that, haven't I? 35%. Wow. Cash reigns at the highest and lowest price tiers, which is really the majority of what we're seeing moving right now. So there you go, 67.1% under 100K and 57.2% from 5 million to 10 million as cash deals. One day. All right, in the last article for today, weekly mortgage demand stalls along with interest rates, but rates are now moving higher. Mortgage rates didn't budge last week, leaving little incentive for either home buyers or current homeowners to call their lenders. Mortgage application volume was essentially flat. Let's see, applications to refi rose 2%. And where's the applications to purchase? Applications for mortgage purchase fell 2%. So I feel like that's the first fall in a while. But it's not exactly... It's frustrating, and this is one of the reasons why I even started this show, is because we do like to go beyond the headlines. You look at the headlines and they're like, oh my gosh, rates are so high. Buyers are, falling out. You hear all of this bad news, but in reality, this is when smart buyers are buying. A lot of us joke about the boomers that bought a house for, 2 pennies and a goat. And they're like, well, they say it's boomers are saying this way to build wealth is just to go buy a house, but back then you could buy it for nothing. A lot of the boomers bought at 14% interest rates. So I don't know what we're talking about. They bought in the 80s, and the 80s had really high interest rates. Now, there was a difference in the amount of income, so what is needed to live. Yes, that was different. But also, most of them were in one-income households. So now you're in a two-income household. So yeah, it's different. I wish we could all go back to one-income households personally, but there's a lot. There's a lot to do. Christian, what's up, man? Christian Belcher Realtor over on Instagram says hi. So it's an anomaly that home prices dropped. We're never going to see that again. We're never going to see a 19% drop in home prices. If we ever see another drop in home prices again, it's going to be like 1 to 3% max. So as a buyer, you can't be looking at home prices dropping to be your barometer for purchasing. What you want to look for is when buyers are starting to back out of the market and there's a lot of inventory for you to choose from, because that's when you get a deal. And you get a deal because somebody has to sell. And those people that have to sell, they are going to make a deal with you to sell. And otherwise, most of the people aren't looking for a deal when they buy a house. They just want a reasonable price or a market price. They don't want anything crazy. They don't want to be in trouble in the future if they have to sell it. And they want to live where they want to live. So a lot of us are looking at the market and looking at the fluctuation. Oh, the interest rate went up 0.1%. It's going to be terrible. And then you have somebody that's like, yeah, but my dream house also just came on the market. So we're going to buy. Life's too short to be in a house that you don't love. So I think the more and more people that start to understand that, the less and less they're going to be looking at specific market dynamics, and the more they're going to be looking at what they can afford, where they want to live, and what a quality of life is going to be with or without a house. So that's my 2 cents. And we're getting out a little early, guys. Yay! This is good news. I do have a hard out today. I'm sorry, guys. One of the reasons I have a hard out today is because we have Atomic Habits coming up. So if any of you are in the book club, Atomic Habits starts in an hour. 1 hour. You guys be ready. If you're wondering what this is, like what is he talking about, Atomic Habits and book club? There is a book club we do, and it's all about applying what we learn. And we are in the process of going through Atomic Habits right now. We're on the second week of discussion. Chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. Make it obvious. Very good. If any of you want to be a part of the book club, send a message to Razorback. My name's right there on the screen. RAYZORBACK. Over on Instagram. I'll try to check that other folder. But send me a message or make a comment on one of those posts if you have to. And let me know you want to be in the book club. I'll be happy to add you to the email list. And there you can find all the links and guides and all that kind of stuff we create. So thank you guys for joining us. I know it was a quiet one. There was a lot of people absent today. I know I got the messages. Several of you could not be here, but I appreciate you being here. Matt Lamar said, life is also too short for driving boring cars. That's nice, Porsche man. It's very nice. I drive my dream car. It just happens to be cheap. I love Jeeps. I wanted a Jeep. I drive a Jeep. The only problem with a Jeep is that you wind up having more parts in the garage than you do on the actual Jeep, which is currently my case. All right, guys, I got to go. Love you all, and I will see you next week. Bye.